be tackling the issue of the eyelid enigma. Now, the eyelid enigma is a problem that has plagued humanity since, as far as I can remember, probably last week. And I think to go ahead and start the video, it's probably important that we go ahead and introduce the topic for anyone who might not have heard of it, just so that way we're all on the same page and understanding what we're going to go ahead and get into today. So, the eyelid enigma. Given the opportunity to undergo an eyelid removal operation that will grant you immediate plus 100 attractiveness rating, but in return you will lose 5% attractiveness each time you attempt to court someone new, would you take it? Now, this is a question that a lot of people have tried to tackle. Of course, the less patient might go ahead and immediately take it, and I don't blame them. As we all know, a plus 100 attractiveness rating is a big deal. But I think today we're going to go ahead and use some math to try and explain it. Now, I know some of you might have clicked off the video. Of course, math is largely associated with the robot uprising that took over humanity. But Robocorp, great corporation. I think today I went ahead and drew up some numbers that I'd like to show you today. Here, I'm really happy with how the 2 came out, but back to the topic of the video. Okay, so now I'd like to go ahead and talk about the graph that we're going to be using to cover this problem today. So really it's nothing too complicated. Just along our y-axis we have the standard scale of attractiveness that I'm sure we've all seen 1,000 times by now. We're at the lower end of that spectrum. We have the blemished bog monster capping out at negative 250, and of course at the upper end of that spectrum we have the handsome herald at positive 250. And along our y-axis today we have the number of people asked out recorded. Again, really nothing too complicated. Now, for our first problem we're going to go ahead and tackle today, we're going to talk about an average Joe with a baseline attractiveness of 50 who is looking to get his eyelids surgically removed for that plus 100 points. Now, of course, no one can blame him. That plus 100 points does sound pretty good, but to start off with, let's go ahead and draw a dashed line around that 50 mark to show where we're starting today. Now that we have that, we're going to go ahead and add our plus 100 points we expect to get from 50, bringing us to a total of 150 points, now boosting us up into that handsome herald area. And from there, right, we can go ahead and plot our first courting attempt. So what that's going to look like is 150. We're going to take 5% of that. And what that's going to leave us with is 7.5. And from there, what we're going to do is subtract that 7.5 from 150. That's going to bring us to 142.5. And we would go ahead and plot that person 1, but we're not going to go and do this for every single number. So we're going to use an equation that is going to make this process a little more streamlined for us. And what that's going to be is y equals p plus 100 times 0.95 to the x power. And what this is, right, is our level of attractiveness is going to be our baseline pre-operation attractiveness level plus 100 for those initial points we'll gain times 0.95. This represents our minus 5% decay for the number of times we ask someone out, right? And what you'll see is that on this table here, I've gone ahead and put up some numbers here, and I'll go ahead and fill those out now. So after asking 10 people out, we'll have a attractiveness rating of 89. For 20, it'll be 53. For 30, 32. And for 40, it'll be 19. So I'll go ahead and graph this up here now, and you might see where this is going, but we'll go ahead and show it. So, as you can see that as x approaches infinity, y is approaching 0. And what's interesting is that only after 22 attempts, our attractiveness rating is going to actually start to go lower than our baseline, as you can see by the dashed line, right? So what this is saying is that if you end up asking more than 22 people out, this operation for our first example would not have been worth it. Again, you might be more hopeful that it's not going to take you that long, but I think that's a pretty big risk. Nevertheless, we're going to go ahead and get into example number 2. So for example number 2, we're going to go ahead and take a average Joe who's on the lower end of that spectrum at the negative 50s. And we'll go ahead again, draw that dashed line now in green. After our base increase, 100 points will now be at a 50 here. And again, using these same numbers, I'll go ahead and put them on that table. Only this time, of course, substituting positive 50 for our P, we'll now use negative 50. So as you can see, after 10 attempts, we'll have 29 attractiveness points, 20, 17, 30, 10, and 46. I'll go ahead and get those on the graph now. Now, what's interesting about this is that, again, as you can see, as the number of people asked out approaches infinity, our attractiveness points still approach 0. However, since we started with a baseline below 0, we're never actually going to go ahead and go below that value, meaning we'll never actually get that net loss that we would have seen in our first example of the average Joe who has a baseline attractiveness above 0. And to go ahead and drive this point home a little bit further, I'd like to go ahead and go over a third example. So for our third example, I'd like to talk about a blemished bog monster, just an absolutely horrendous person who is starting off with a baseline attractiveness of negative 200 points. Now, again, I'm going to go ahead and plug in those numbers down here, and we'll go ahead and graph those. So again, for this example, after 10 courting attempts, this person will have negative 59 points, 20, negative 35, 30, negative 21, and 40, negative 12. But as you can see here, what's really interesting about someone whose plus 100 still brings them below that 0 scale of the average Joe is that after each courting attempt, they will go ahead and actually increase their attractiveness rating with each ask out attempt. Again, never getting above 0, but considering they started all the way down at the blemished bog monster state, definitely worth it to have their eyelids surgically removed. Now, what all this is saying is that if you have a baseline value that is below that 0 on the attractiveness scale, getting your eyelids surgically removed is probably going to be pretty good for you, and something I do recommend you go out and pursue. However, on the case of example 1, right, where we have our baseline starting above 0, you know, on the positive 50, it only took 22 attempts to go ahead and reach that threshold where it was no longer yielding net positives. And what you'll find is that as you go ahead and increase your baseline attractiveness scale, that's actually going to happen in fewer attempts. But I won't go ahead and cover that equation in this video, because like what are we, calculators? We can have them do that work.
I would like to retract the calculator comment and apologize to anyone at RoboCorp or the Ministry of Computation for what I said. But I just